I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving last week. I happened to pick up a cold, so if I sound a little bit under the weather, I'm doing much better than I was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I had this 4-day cold, and I'm doing much better now. So it's time for my fall 2025 update. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, episode 359. I am your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. Again, this is my fall 2025 update, and you can find the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. I published my first ever seasonal update in fall 2022. What is that, 3 years ago? And this is my last one. I will have a summer update in July 2026 in, what is that, 7 months? And I will do just once a year after that. I'll do a yearly update. If you would like to find out what happens in the meantime every single month, please subscribe to my monthly newsletter. You can find a sign up link either in the show notes today, the show notes for episode 359, or you can go to thepharmacistvoice.com, hit the contact tab, and then at the bottom, you will find a sign up for my newsletter. Sign up and I will email you every month. If you're new to these seasonal updates, welcome. Every season, fall, winter, spring, and summer, I publish an update on my family, my business, my podcasts, both of them, and what I've been listening to, reading, watching, and playing. Previous updates are linked in the show notes for episode 359. That's this episode on thepharmacistvoice.com. Hit the podcast tab and then find episode 359. And in case you're new to this show, welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. And here's a little bit about me. Again, my name is Kim Newlove, and I am a pharmacist. I graduated from the University of Toledo College of Pharmacy with my BS Pharm in 2001. I have experience in hospital, retail, compounding, and behavioral health. I'm not in clinical practice anymore, which means I don't work in pharmacies anymore. Instead, I use my voice. I use my voice as a pharmacist to write, narrate, and podcast. And I draw on my experiences as a pharmacist and a writer, a narrator, and a podcaster to help other people share their voices through spoken and written content as well. Some of my job titles include voice actor, podcast host, author, coach, consultant, and instructor. I'm also a full time caregiver for my adult son, Craig, who has autism. Now, just to expand on some of these titles just a little bit, as a voice actor, think medical narration and audiobooks. I'm not doing commercials for television here. My podcast hosting is exactly what you're hearing now. I host the Pharmacist's Voice podcast and the Perrysburg podcast, two podcasts. As an author, I wrote one book. It is called Pharmacist Podcaster, a podcast planning guide for pharmacy professionals. You can find it on Amazon.com in print, ebook, and audiobook. And I am working on a second book. More on that in July. I am also a coach, consultant, and instructor, like I mentioned just a minute ago. And what I primarily teach is podcasting, audio engineering, audiobook narration, and drug pronunciations. And with the full time caregiver gig, we'll talk more about that when we get to the family update in just a little bit. When it comes to my business, though, the Pharmacist's Voice, what I do mostly focuses on spoken and written communication. And it's because I don't take my own voice for granted. I have a son, my son Craig, who does not read, write, or speak. He has autism, and watching him struggle to communicate helps me appreciate having my own voice and using it. So I gotta say, I don't take my voice for granted. Don't take your voice for granted, my dear listener. Use your voice. There is power in having a voice and using it, so use yours. If you would like to know more about me, my business, and my happy clients, I encourage you to go over to LinkedIn and check out my profile. You can also visit my business website and my online store. Those websites are thepharmacistvoice.com. So that's the pharmacists with an S, voice.com, and kimnewlove.com. Kimnewlove.com is more like my online store. That's where I sell online courses and my coaching and consulting. I charge $75 for 30 minutes and $150 for 60 minutes. If you go to the pharmacistvoice.com, you can hit the store tab, and that's where you'll find my online store. I can tell that my cold is still getting my voice down a little bit. I apologize for any cracks. Anyways, when you go to the store tab of the pharmacistvoice.com, you're going to find three departments in that online store. I have the podcasting department, the audiobook narration department, and the drug name pronunciation department. If you are interested in any of those, just go ahead and click around. I've got some freebies on kimnewlove.com or the store portion of thepharmacistvoice.com. And I'll wrap that up. That's it for my background information. Now that you know a little bit more about me, let's dive into my fall 2025 update. I love these updates. This covers August 22nd, 2025 through December 3rd, 2025. I usually get my fall update out in late November around Black Friday, but hey, this one comes out on December 5th, 2025. Let's start with an update on my business first. In case you're new to the show, the name of my business is The Pharmacist's Voice. I write, narrate, podcast, coach, consult, and instruct, and I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with each of those. As for writing, I am working on my second book. It's about local podcasts. And the first one was about podcast planning for pharmacy professionals. So this one's going to be about local podcast planning. I also write email newsletters for my business, the Perrysburg podcast, and then my weekly LinkedIn newsletter as well. So I write quite a bit, and that's all that's going on with my writing. Writing a book, writing some newsletters. For the narration part of my business, I am not narrating any audiobooks at this time, and I have zero medical narration projects going on this month. It's December. I'm busy enough. No medical narration projects this month. However, I will be talking to my medical narration coach, Debbie Irwin, and putting together a new demo for my website in 2026. My demo is almost 6 years old. I recorded it in March of 2020, the week that the world shut down for the pandemic. And I don't even sound like that anymore. I especially don't sound like that today because I have a cold. So, anyways, I need to update my demo. The demo is what casting agents will download and think about hiring me because of. It's very important. I was thinking about leaving the voiceover industry altogether, but after speaking to a colleague, my friend Maria Pendolino, I think I'm going to stay in for just a little while longer. And Maria probably doesn't listen to this podcast, but shout out to Maria Pendolino. Maria is a heck of a voice actor and she does some good coaching. She may be a colleague, but I go to her for coaching every once in a while when I just need her opinion. She's fantastic. Everybody needs a friend, a colleague that they can go to and ask for advice. Thanks, Maria. As far as podcasting, man, things are going great. I've got my two shows. I'm able to keep up with my weekly production schedule on both shows. And I'm going to keep going with the pharmacist's voice every week until the end of January 2026. And then in February, I'm going to switch to a monthly schedule. We'll talk more about that when we get to the update on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. And I'm also still hosting the Perrysburg podcast, which is my local podcast, and I'll give you an update about that in just a little bit. All right, let's keep going with the business update here. When it comes to coaching and consulting, I am still working with clients on podcast planning, author read audiobooks, and drug pronunciations. This fall, I learned a lot more about audiobook production here in Northwest Ohio specifically. I live in Northwest Ohio, and I was helping my high school chemistry teacher get connected with a studio where he could narrate his memoir. It was about growing up in Northwest Ohio in the 60s. I was just trying to connect him with some options, and I don't think he's even started his audiobook journey yet. I hope he has, but I am not his coach. He is not a paying client. I was just trying to help him out. So I'm not following up with him like Coach Kim typically would. I should check in with him though and just wish him a Merry Christmas and ask him where he's at on that. Anyways, now that I know more about local audiobook production and studios, I would like to put myself out there to help more local authors narrate their audiobooks. It's typically something that I just help pharmacists with. And when I work with pharmacists, I work with them remotely. I've worked with one client who lives in Arizona, one who lives in Kentucky, and one who lived in Kansas, or maybe she lived in California and moved to Kansas. So, anyways, I'm used to working remotely and helping authors come up with a plan. If you are local to me here in Northwest Ohio, or if you live anywhere in the United States and you would like an experienced audiobook narrator like myself to help you develop a plan for your audiobook, let me know. Reach out through the contact form on the pharmacistvoice.com, or you can go to kimnewlove.com/narration and get my free narration tip sheet. There's a lot of great author read audiobook tips in that tip sheet. While we're on the topic of audiobooks, I'd like to say congratulations to my client, Rosa Hart. She published her audiobook just this fall. It is called Speak Up, Start Now, and I have a link to it in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Congratulations again to Rosa. Now, as far as podcast coaching, I am still doing that. I have one podcasting client locally here, and I have one podcasting client who completed her journey. So we're done working together. And I had a new podcasting client hire me just to do some consulting just this week. I have, I would say, space for two new podcasting clients at this time. So if you would like to start your podcast in the new year, let's start planning now. Reach out on thepharmacistvoice.com. Let me know what you would like to accomplish and let's work together. In case you're curious about how much I charge $150 for an hour or $75 for 30 minutes when it comes to podcast consulting or coaching. And I have what I call a starter package, which is $599, gets you 4 hours of my time. That's 3 hours of podcast planning where we get ready to launch your podcast, and 1 hour where I am helping you make sure that you've got everything you need for episode one. I help you upload all of your assets to your media host. And I also, as a bonus, help you put your RSS feed in Apple Podcasts Connect. Can you start a podcast with just 3 hours of coaching time? I don't know. It just, everybody's different, but I would say I will get you a solid start. So think about signing up for my starter package. $599 gets you 4 hours of my time. I think that's enough about what I do for podcast consulting at this time. Let's move on to what I'm doing as an actual pharmacist. I am not working in clinical practice. I don't work in pharmacies anymore, but I do keep up my Ohio license, my Ohio pharmacist license. And in order to keep it in good standing, I have to do CE. My preferred way of doing CE is going to live events. So in November, November 2nd, I went to the mid-year meeting of the Ohio Pharmacists Association in the Columbus, Ohio area. I earned some CE and I networked. It was nice to be among pharmacists and learning. I think the most interesting session of the day was about dementia. And I learned about a drug that I'm going to feature on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast and the drug pronunciation series. The name of the drug is Kisunla, Kisunla, Kisunla. And I believe that's actually next week's episode. In other news, I taught my Podcasting 101 class locally again this September. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years at the 577 Foundation here in Perrysburg, Ohio. It is an arts and nature center, and I absolutely love it. I have small groups that I teach, and I also added a class. They allowed me to teach Audio Engineering for Podcasters 101. I think that's what it was called for the first time ever this fall. I think I mentioned this in my summer 2025 update, and I predicted that I would have some students from Podcasting 101 take the Audio Engineering 101 class. But I was wrong. I had zero students from podcasting go to the audio engineering class. I actually had a father daughter combination. So, a father daughter combination came to the audio engineering class, and this young lady was very young. I think she might have been in sixth grade, and her dad was a teacher, and they want to start a podcast together. I thought that was great. So, they came to Audio Engineering 101. I learn something every time I teach, and I'm so glad that I offered to teach this class and that the 577 Foundation hired me to teach it. Thank you very much to the 577 Foundation. I love teaching there. That does it for my business update. Next up is an update on both of my podcasts. I've got the Pharmacist Voice podcast and the Perrysburg podcast. Let's go with the Pharmacist Voice podcast first. That's the podcast that you're listening to right now. I already mentioned that I'll be changing my schedule, my production schedule from a weekly format to a monthly format in February 2026. I only have about 7 weekly shows remaining. Once I get to my 6 year anniversary show, which I am planning for January 23rd, 2026, I plan to convert to a monthly schedule. Now, I may stick in a bonus episode on January 30th because I have a colleague right here in Ohio that I know through the Ohio Pharmacists Association who converted a bus into a mobile vaccination clinic. It is a fascinating story. He's an interesting and passionate guy. So, if we can connect for an interview, that's going on January 30th. I would love for him to tell his story before I switch to monthly episodes. Now, I don't normally do this, but since it's the last update, the last seasonal update, what I'm going to do is say a little bit about each and every single episode since my summer 2025 update. I'll make it quick. Here we go. Episode 345 was called What Makes You Weird is Your Superpower How a Simple Binder Keeps My Reading Life Organized. And that had a lot of titles of books that I want to read. And I talked about how I enjoy organizing information. And a funny thing about that episode, I accidentally left a curse word into it. So Apple initially marked it as explicit. I went back, updated the audio file, bleeped out the bad word, which happened to be a bad word in the title of a book. It was the S word. Anyways, hopefully it is not explicit on your podcast player. I know that sometimes will prohibit an episode from being aired in certain countries. Episode 346 was How Do You Say Valacyclovir? That was Pronunciation Series, episode 62. Episode 347 was 10 audiobook narration tips for pharmacist authors. That's basically the audio version of that tip sheet that I talked about for authors who want to narrate their own audiobooks. I mentioned that as one of my services. Episode 348 is also part of the pronunciation series. It is titled How Do You Say Colesevelam or Well Call? Episode 349 was How Do You Say Acetaminophen? That was Pronunciation Series, episode 64. I didn't intend to go out of alphabetical order, but President Donald J. Trump mispronounced acetaminophen during some of his official business, and I thought it was necessary to jump in there and do a pronunciation episode about acetaminophen. So that was episode 349. Episode 350 is another pronunciation episode that was part 65 of the series, and it is titled How Do You Say Xarelto? Episode 351 was a little bit different. It was about exquisite empathy, balancing compassion and boundaries. Episode 352 is part of the pronunciation series. It's part 66. The title is How Do You Say Yes, Carta? Episode 353 was part 3 of the Pharmacist Authors series for 2025. The title is Winning is in My DNA with Dr. Sandra O. Anye. Dr. Anye wrote a book called Winning is in My DNA. It is a guided journal that helps you record your wins. If you are looking for a Christmas gift, an inspirational Christmas gift, buy her book. It is awesome. It's pretty much a journal. You write in it and you record your wins. So many of us think about things that we don't get done. We also need to track what we do get done. So that's what her journal is all about. Episode 354 was called Moneyball for Pharmacists: Winning with Agile Teams, Not Bigger Budgets. I got inspired by the book and the movie Moneyball, and I created a podcast episode around that, trying to figure out what is pharmacy's base hit. And I'm going to have a Moneyball 2.0 episode probably in 2026. I don't think I'll have time to get around to it before the holidays. Episode 355 was my interview with Dr. Anthony Moriali. He's a pharmacy leader, consultant, and retired VA pharmacist. He's an expert at finding and fixing healthcare gaps. If you have not heard this episode, he is a very inspirational guest. We're almost up to present day here. Episode 356 was part of my pronunciation series. It's part 67 of the pronunciation series. The title is How Do You Say Xanaflex? Episode 357 was my interview with Dr. Brooke Griffin, PharmD. She is a pharmacist podcaster, I tell you. She is the host of the 5 Minute Pep Talk podcast. And we talked about her podcast in an effort to inspire other people to host a podcast, be a podcast guest, or just use their voice in general. So check out 357, episode 357, to hear Brooke. And last week's episode was episode 358. It was part of the pronunciation series. It's part 68 of the pronunciation series. And the title is How Do You Say Journavx? Journavx is a new pain medication. If you would like to learn more about it, of course, you can go to journavx.com, but come on over to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 358, and hear about how to pronounce it first. We've got the brand and generic pronunciations. And that's it. That'll catch you up on what's been going on with the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Real quick, before I move on to talking about the Perrysburg podcast, I'll just run through what's coming up on this podcast in 2026. January 23rd, 2026 might be my final weekly episode. I may have that special guest on January 30th, but if not, January 23rd, 2026 will be my last weekly episode. Then I'm going to monthly, and I have not decided on which day of the month I'm going to go with. I don't know if it'll be, the 2nd or the 15th or the first Tuesday. To be announced, just saying. But this episode on January 23rd is my 6-year podcast anniversary episode. I plan to cover stats, lessons learned, and what's next. In February 2026, my first episode on the monthly schedule, it will be part of the Pharmacist Podcasters series. I will be interviewing a pharmacist podcaster about their podcast. It will be part 14 in that series. In March 2026, I will have my annual poison prevention episode. I am actually developing it with Angel Bivens, RPH, and Dr. Wendy Stefan right now. We are thinking of doing something about substance use disorders. So that is a topic to be announced, but definitely we're going to have that episode come out in March 2026, and that should come out during National Poison Prevention Week. April will be my annual Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episode. Possibly, I may have a co host for that specific episode. Co host name to be announced, so stay tuned for that. May 2026 will be part of the drug pronunciation series. I don't know if I'll do just one drug name or if I'll do more than one since it's the only episode of that month. June 2026 will be part of the Pharmacist Authors series. For the past, I think, 3 years, I have been interviewing pharmacist authors every summer. So, since June is part of summer, I will be interviewing a pharmacist author. July will be my summer update. It will be very much like this update where I talk about my business, my podcasts, my family, and what I've been listening to, reading, watching, and playing. So, when I do talk about the Perrysburg podcast, which is my other podcast, I will talk about the finale of that podcast because that ends on July 3rd, 2026. I have the option to keep it going. Maybe it'll be monthly. Maybe I will put it to rest. I don't know. So, find out in July. and also find out about progress on the book that I'm writing about local podcasts. I'll have a lot coming up in my July update, my summer 2026 update. So join me for that. August 2026 will be about author read audiobooks. All that means is if you are an author, you wrote a book and you want to narrate the audiobook, you need to listen to this episode in August 2026. I'm planning to bring my friend Laura on board for this episode as well. It's not necessarily going to be an interview so much as us giving narration advice. We went through nonfiction audiobook narration training together back in 2019 and 2020 with Sean Pratt. He's a famous nonfiction audiobook narration coach, and he's been on this podcast before to kind of keep each other motivated and on task when we had homework. We would talk to each other. You got the homework done yet? Where'd you find your resources? We'd help each other, but also it was friendly competition. We have become friends and we still meet several times per year. So we're going to get together and we're going to help you if you are an author who wants to narrate their audiobook. The September 2026 episode will be about drug names. I'll either have an interview with a branding company like Addison Whitney or Brand Symbol or one of the other big ones that names drugs. As an alternative, I will consider making this September 2026 episode part of the pronunciation series. So if I can't land an interview and get it out by September, then I'll just make it part of the pronunciation series. October 2026 will be American Pharmacists Month, so I'll plan a topic about the profession of pharmacy for that one. November will be either a men's health episode or an interview with a veteran pharmacist. I don't believe I've interviewed any Department of Defense pharmacists, so I may pursue a veteran pharmacist of the DoD persuasion. And then December's episode will be about pharmacist led smoking cessation programs. Many people try to quit smoking on January 1st, New Year's resolution, right? So, December is a perfect time to talk about pharmacist led smoking cessation programs. Pharmacists are helping people quit smoking. Let's talk about it. And that's all I have to say about what's going on with the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. I know that was a lot, but now you know what's coming up. Next, I will update you on my other podcast, which is called the Perrysburg Podcast. I live in a small town in Northwest Ohio called Perrysburg, and the Perrysburg Podcast is a resource for Perrysburg residents, much like the local newspaper or local magazines. It's a resource for Perrysburg residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. It is my hobby podcast or service project. It is a 3-year project, and I plan to end the podcast on July 3rd, 2026. I publish new episodes every Friday, and there is a weekly newsletter that notifies subscribers about new episodes. So if you'd like to hear me chatter some more, go ahead and sign up for the newsletter on perrysburgpodcast.com, and I will email you every time a new episode comes out. All you have to do is click the link and listen. Next, I'm going to follow up on something that I mentioned about the Perrysburg podcast in my summer 2025 update. I mentioned that I got nominated for a Best Local Podcast Award by a blogger named Frank. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it starts with an R, and the name of the blog is Earworthy. I have a link to it in the show notes for episode 359 on thepharmacistvoice.com. I regret to inform you that I did not win the Best Local Podcast Award, but it was an honor to be nominated. The name of Frank's blog, again, is Earworthy, and he talks about indie podcasts, independent podcasts. Moving on, I already mentioned that I'm writing a book about local podcasting. Part of the book will offer a template for a local podcast using the Perrysburg podcast as an example. I think other people should use my template because it's just so simple. And I'll also talk about each episode that I published for the Perrysburg podcast and a little bit about why I chose to publish it. The book might help other local podcasters or local podcasters to be with their mission, their content creation, and their production schedule. In my mind, it's very helpful to see what someone else has done and the rationale behind it to decide, do I like that? Do I want to do that too? Or do I want to do something different or a variation of it? And by me putting out a book with what I have done, it may help some other content creators, some other local podcasters. I think I'll end the update about the Perrysburg podcast with an overview of the most recent episodes going back to August 29th. Episode 110 was about fire prevention tips and the open house at our local fire station. And again, this is all local stuff for Northwest Ohio. Episode 111 was about preschools, specifically preschools in Perrysburg. Episode 112 was about the 2025 architectural scavenger hunt. We have an architectural scavenger hunt annually in this town, and I participated for the very first time ever, and my family won third place, which was amazing because we didn't know what we were doing, but we figured it out. Episode 113 was about the Fall of Fun 2025. Episode 114 was part of my medical series part 3 of 4, and the title is How to Be a Pet Owner in Perrysburg. Episode 115 was about free and secondhand finds. We talked about free stuff, secondhand stores, garage sales, rummage sales, etc. Episode 116 was about voter resources for the November 4th, 2025 election. Episode 117 was a Meet the Candidates episode for the City of Perrysburg Council candidates. I interviewed 4 people for that episode, and that had a lot of listens in a short period of time. That was a good choice. One of the council candidates talked me into that one. If you're a local podcaster, man, if you want to be a resource, do that episode. Episode 118 was Medical Series Part 4 of 4. It was about pharmacies, and it happened to be during American Pharmacist Month. And Dr. Erin L. Albert was my guest for that episode. She did a great job, and I think she's the only guest to appear on both of my podcasts, the Pharmacist's Voice and the Perrysburg podcast. Episode 119 was about cemeteries. Episode 120 was about conversations that keep seniors thriving. I had a Perrysburg resident talk about senior living. Episode 121 was about the 2025 Battle of the Badges blood drive. We had police versus fire. So I went in and I donated and I chose police or fire. And they had a little competition to see if people in the community could basically cast a vote for police or fire in enough numbers to win a contest. And in fact, the fire department won this year. But these Battle of the Badges blood drives are more popular because the theme brings people in. And I also interviewed someone from the American Red Cross to talk about the American Red Cross's constant need for blood. Episode 122 was about legacy interviews. I talked about what a legacy interview is and the products that I am buying for my parents so we can make books with their memories for Christmas this year. It's probably going to take us all year to get the stories out and to create the book, but I bought Storyworth for my mom and Memento for my dad. Mom and dad, if you're listening to this, surprise. Actually, they know I'm doing it. Anyways, episode 123 was an interview with a local funeral director. Her name is Molly Johnson, and there's only one funeral home in this tiny little town, and she's the funeral director. So I had an interview with her, and she talked about the benefits of pre planning a funeral, among other things. Molly is an incredibly upbeat person and very creative, and I think she's a wonderful resource for our community. I am so glad that she agreed to be on the Perrysburg podcast. And then this Friday, my plan is to have an episode about where you can find Santa in Perrysburg. It'll be a short episode, but still, anybody who's looking to move to this town or is brand new to town might need that information. And the Perrysburg podcast is all about being a resource for the Perrysburg community, a resource for future and current Perrysburg residents. And that's it. I think I got you up to date here. So, at this time, I will update you on my family. My family includes my husband, Nathan, myself, and our adult sons. We've got Craig, who's 22, and Derek, who's 20. I will do a general update about family news first, then I'll say something about each member of the family, including myself. And then we'll move on to my favorite part, which is what I've been listening to, reading, watching, and playing. All right, let's start off with Thanksgiving. As I record this on December 3rd, 2025, Thanksgiving was just last week. It was late, right? It was late in the month of November. My son Derek came home for Thanksgiving break. If you have college kids in your life, you know how sweet it is when they come home. It makes my mama heart happy to have all four of my family members under one roof again. Derek is the only child that I have in college. He's the only one that lives away from home. So we enjoyed having him home. We were very happy when he walked through the door. We were able to gather with both sides of our family. So, my husband's side, my in laws, on Thursday, and then my parents on Friday. I had lots of yummy food, but then I also got a cold on Friday. I don't know who I picked it up from, but I have a cold. It's almost run its course, I think. As this is a fall 2025 update, we're going to go all the way back to September and October. My household has a tradition of doing fun stuff every fall. We call it the Fall of Fun. If you would like to hear more about our Fall of Fun, listen to episode 113 of the Perrysburg podcast. This fall, we did a lot of the stuff on the list, not all of it, but some of the things that we got to were the Fulton County Fair, which is Labor Day weekend every year. We ate pumpkin pancakes in September. We go to IHOP for our pumpkin pancakes. We went on hay rides. We picked apples and pumpkins. We cooked fry pies over an open fire at our church. Picture this, you get 2 pieces of bread and you can make a grilled cheese sandwich, you can make a pizza sandwich, you can make a turkey sandwich, a Reuben, whatever you want. That is a fry pie, 2 pieces of bread and something between it. There's a metal iron that has 2 sides. You crimp the sandwich between the 2 metal plates, hold it over the fire, cook it, and boom, you got a fry pie. This fall, we also ate cider and donuts. We walked through a corn maze. We went to an amusement park in Sandusky, Ohio called Cedar Point. Lots of rides there. I don't do the high thrill rides anymore, but I love the decorations. I love riding the train. I love riding some of the rides. And then apart from that, we went to a haunted mansion at a local metro park. It is called Wildwood Metro Park, and the name of the haunted mansion is the Manor House. And it's not really haunted, they just dressed it up for Halloween, so I'm calling it a haunted mansion, so it's very PG. It's very G rated, actually. It's for kids. We had a busy and a fun fall, and that haunted mansion piece, I think they called it the Eerie Mansion or something like that. That was new. So we had a busy and fun fall, and we even did something new. In other family news, we finished phase one of our backyard patio project. Long story short, we had a wooden deck for 17 years. We had a demolition man remove it last December. The concrete was poured in May. The pergola was built this summer, and we finally bought patio furniture this fall. It's done. Phase one is done, and it's been a process. Phase two is next. My husband needs to order his grill in March, and we need to get our concrete guy to come on back and pour the last 1/3 of our concrete patio in May. We have a pretty basic plan at this point, and we need to execute come the spring. I will go through just a few other family updates and then I'll say something about each family member. I know this is probably the longest seasonal update you've ever heard from me, but hey, it's the last one you're going to get until July, so let's do this. In September, we did a family portrait session. We try to do one per year. I love seeing how my boys have grown. They both have beards now, which is amazing, but they're in their 20s, and that's kind of what young people do. Shout out to Vanity Studios. Vanity Studios has been doing my headshot and branding photography for I don't know, since 2018, 6, 7 years at this point. They do a fantastic job. They're now located in Maumee, Ohio, and we love their work. You will see one of the images from our family photo shoot in today's episode artwork, so take a look at that. On a different topic, one of the heartbreaking things that happened this fall is that we adopted a 4-year-old female Labradoodle named Winnie on Labor Day weekend. So it was August 30th, and she didn't work out. I seem to have developed an allergy to dogs, or maybe it's just that breed. She's a Labradoodle. So, with heavy hearts, we had to return Winnie the Labradoodle to the breeder after less than a month. I would say after about 9 days. My tongue started swelling. I was having trouble swallowing, and I had to go to the allergy doctor and ask what the heck's going on. I actually went to the urgent care too. Anyways, long story short, the allergy doctor suggested that it would be best for me to get allergy shots for 6 to 8 months before getting a dog. So we're going to hold off on getting a dog. This allergy came as a big surprise because we had a yellow Labrador retriever named Chewy for like 14 years, and I don't remember having any problems outside normal, seasonal allergies. And then we had a golden retriever, my son's therapy dog, named Bond, for 6 years from 2011 till 2017. Somehow, I developed a dog allergy after Bond died in 2017. Who knew that would happen? So, our hearts are ready for another dog, but we are going to wait because of this allergy problem. I need to get allergy shots, and I'm honestly not willing to put in the work to do it at this time. We will revisit having a dog at a later time. On a positive note, we booked our family vacation for next year. We did not go on a family vacation in 2025 because of Craig's graduation and our construction project in the backyard. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Alaska in May. We're going to do an Alaskan cruise. We're going to start in Seattle, go out to Alaska, come back to Seattle, and then we'll be done. I've never been to Alaska, but we're going in May. We are using this vacation as our way to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. We'll actually be celebrating a little early. We'll be going in May, but our anniversary is actually June 30th. I'm all about beating deadlines, so can't wait to do this. We're excited. All four of us are going: Nathan, me, and the boys. And Derek will have just turned 21 when we go in May. His birthday is April 19th. So he will be on a cruise ship with a casino and multiple bars. He's going to have a blast, I'm sure. The last thing I'll say about my family news here before I talk about each individual person is that it's December and it's a busy month. Our family is focused on Christmas right now. We will be going to the Advent services at our church on Sundays. I started doing my Christmas shopping on Black Friday and, all weekend through Cyber Monday. I've got a lot more to do, but I've got to start. I'm picking up my Christmas cards today and writing my Christmas newsletter sometime this week. I will be making a Christmas calendar as a gift this year. I do it every year. I think I've done it for more than 10 years, let's say. Everybody looks forward to it. I get hundreds of pictures and I put them in a calendar and I give a copy to both sides of our families. I will start that this weekend. And then I will probably wait until Christmas week, maybe the week between Christmas and New Year's, to bake cookies. I just don't have time. Christmas is a very busy time. I don't have to tell you, you know that. But there's also a lot to look forward to. So I don't know if I've said it already in this episode. I don't think I have. So from my family to yours, Merry Christmas. That's it for the general family news. Now I'll update you on each member of the family individually, starting with my husband, Nathan. Since it's fall, Nathan is cheering for the Cleveland Browns football team and running 5 fantasy football leagues, which is not unusual for him. He loves football season. NFL football is his jam. He's not so much into college, he likes the NFL. He also loves cheese. I know that's a weird segue, but Our local independent grocery store, which is called Walt Churchill's Market, orders in a giant crate of Christmas cheddar every year. So it's kind of like a mild cheddar, maybe a medium cheddar. And Nathan loves it. This cheddar block, it's like 1,000 pounds big. It's a thing. People show up when they cut it. It's like the cutting of the cheese, which I know sounds like a joke, but it's like the whole town shows up to watch Churchill's Market cut the cheese. Nathan only buys a pound at a time, but he does enjoy eating it. We all love it. Again, it's called Christmas cheddar. Speaking of food, Nathan baked a pumpkin pie with one of the pumpkins that he picked during the Fall of Fun. The pie turned out better this year than last year, and I think I know why. He improved his process. What did he do? He used cheesecloth this year. The cheesecloth will strain out the excess water from the mashed up pumpkin. So the pumpkin pie this year turned out less watery. There wasn't a bunch of moisture in the center of the pie. Nathan's pies get a little better every year. Can't wait to see what he does next year. Nathan also started a 12-part LinkedIn newsletter. It's already finished, but it was called Lessons from the Climb. He talked about his career path from engineer to plant manager at First Solar. The goal was to inform his network on LinkedIn and inspire them. If you would like to read Nathan's newsletter, again, his name is Nathan Newlove, and you can look up the Lessons from the Climb newsletter, and it's somewhere on his LinkedIn page. Speaking of plant manager, I know that I mentioned Nathan's career path from engineer to plant manager. He just celebrated 1 year in that role as plant manager. He's what you call the plant manager at First Solar's PGT3 facility. They have multiple facilities across the United States, and he works at PGT3. If you don't know this, First Solar makes solar panels. And I think that's it for Nathan's update. Moving on, I'll go next. I feel like I've been a busy girl this fall. I have been adjusting to Craig being home all the time now that he's finished high school. The Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities considers me to be Craig's Ohio Shared Living Provider, or OSL provider. So, in addition to being his mom and his legal guardian, I am part of Craig's care team. I help my son Craig live his best life instead of him living in a group home or community living situation or an institution. That might be a word you're familiar with. And also, he could, as an alternative, attend a day program. If you don't know what a day program is, it's a program that people with disabilities can go to during the day if they're unable to work. Sometimes they do arts and crafts, or they do volunteering, or they go on community outings. We visited about 14 of them, and we can't find one that Craig likes. He gets to pick. He's an adult, and he does not like any of the ones that we've gone to. So I will continue to help him enjoy life every day. And maybe in the future, there will be a community living situation that's right for him and a day program as well. In the meantime, we are very appreciative that we have some caregivers who have stuck with us for a few months now, and I'm able to get a break for about 5 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. When I do get away, I try to split my time. It's a 5 hour block of time if everybody's running on schedule. And I try to use about half the time for family stuff and about half the time for my business. So my work week at this time is about 12 and a half hours long. So the pharmacist's voice is very much a part time job. When I'm not working on my business, I work on projects for my family and I volunteer. And of course, I take care of my family and my home. You may be interested to know about some of my volunteer activities. I'll just name three. I'll keep this short. One is I help out with the Ohio Pharmacists Association Communications Committee. So, my state pharmacist association has a communications committee, and I think we only meet quarterly. So, I help with that. The second example is that I'm helping plan my 30-year high school reunion with some of my classmates. So we're all getting together, like 10 of us, and trying to figure out what to do. We have a pretty good plan. We just need to keep at it. And then the third example of some of my volunteer work is that I've been donating blood regularly. And I donated blood at the Battle of the Badges blood drive, and I won't tell you who I voted for, but the fire department did win. I have been donating blood since the age of 17. And as I am 47 years old, I've been donating for 30 years. I have donated 7 gallons and 1 pint. So I think that works out to 57 pints. I would like to get to 10 gallons someday, but who knows if that'll happen. On a different topic, this fall I took more of an interest in eating better, which means that I took a cooking class. I learned how to incorporate more vegetables and protein into my diet. I got a few recipes. I still have a lot to learn, but I am using the recipes and it is helping me eat better. I know that these updates help you get to know me better, so I will also mention that I got to drive my scooter around quite a bit. I drive a BMW C400X scooter. I got to drive all this spring and summer and then into mid October, and it was wonderful. I love to ride, mostly in town, but I love my little scooter. Swimming is one of my favorite activities. I don't know if you knew that, but I've been swimming since 2014. I'm a lap swimmer. I belong to our local YMCA, and they have a nice lap pool, and that is where I swim. I used to swim between 150 and 200 miles per year. I have not been keeping track, but at this point, I swim a lot less. I used to swim 2 to 3 times per week, but with my new schedule and Craig being home all the time, I'm lucky if I can swim twice a month. I miss swimming, but this is where I'm at right now. I get to go out to lunch with some of my pharmacy friends a few times a year. In October, I think it was October 3rd, I went out to lunch with some of my Toledo area pharmacy friends, and my sister got to come along too, which was kind of cool to introduce my sister to one of my former interns and my old boss and my cardiology professor and, all these people. It was really cool. It's like worlds colliding, right? And my sister happened to be in town from Portland, Oregon, because she was visiting before she was taking off to go to Switzerland and live there this fall and winter. It was nice to see her before the trip, of course, and now I'm enjoying following her on Instagram and checking out all of her trips from her travels. I believe she's over there concentrating on her master's thesis in German language studies and finishing up her Fulbright Scholar project. Hopefully, I said that right. She's a Fulbright Scholar and she's finishing up her project. Speaking of travel, I got to travel this fall. I got to go to North Carolina and visit my good friend Elmasa. And if you know that name Elmasa, it might be because you've heard episode 115 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Elmasa was my guest on that episode. I got to see Elmasa, her husband Stefan, and their son Reiner. We had a blast. We had fun. We had some good meals and conversations. I got a tour of her neighborhood, her workplace, and also I got to see where her husband works. He is in the physics department at Duke University. So I got to walk around Duke University's campus. And then I gotta mention, I finally got to go to a Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is a supermarket that's kind of, I guess, quirky. And I've been wanting to go to it because when I interview people for my local podcast and I ask them what store or service that does not exist in Perrysburg do you want to see come to Perrysburg? And Trader Joe's is the number one answer. So Almasa took me to Trader Joe's, and I'll tell you, my life is complete. I can die happy now. I'm just kidding. Also, while I was with Almasa, she has backyard chickens, and I got to see them and their fabulous chicken coop, and I got to try some of their eggs. Almasa, if you're listening, I had a fabulous time. Thank you so much for the good times. Let's do it again. Also, in November, I got to meet up with a legendary podcaster named Elsie Escobar. We met up via Google Meet, and I invited her to write a testimonial for my next book about local podcasting because she's full of podcasting knowledge, and if anybody could write an accurate testimonial, it's her. So I look forward to sharing my book with Elsie. This update is getting really long, and I am running out of caregiver time, so I got to finish this up. I will end the part about me with a running joke about my hair. For about 2.5 years now, I have been growing the color out of my hair, which means I used to dye my hair and get it highlighted. And back in, gosh, it was 2023, June of 2023, I just stopped coloring it, and it's been really awkward. I've got white highlights framing my face, but I don't mind it. It's just having hair that's multiple colors is just a little awkward. In mid November, I got a haircut, and I'm pretty sure all the color is gone. We're going to do one more haircut in February or March, and then I will consider this transition, this grow out, complete. It's been a running joke for a really long time, but now that my hair is going to be completely grown out, I'm going to get a new headshot and new branding photos from Vanity Studios in Mommy. I need to update my stock photos that I use for my websites, my podcast episodes, social media, etc. You get the point. And that's it. That does it for me, the update about me. Next up is an update about Craig, and I will keep this brief. Craig is my 22-year-old son with autism. I talk about him in detail every April when I do my annual Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episodes. Craig graduated from high school in May 2025, so just this year, and he spends most of his days around the house or out in the community. He's like a kangaroo. He likes to jump out of the pouch, aka my house, go out in the community, have some fun, and then come back, whether it's with me or a caregiver or my husband. Craig does not go to school anymore. He doesn't go to a day program. He doesn't live in a group home or an institution. And that's his life. He seems much happier and less anxious spending a lot of time at home. But he still needs a very high level of care. So we continue to help him live his best life. And we continue to write social stories and affirmations to help him with life. He's easy to love, and my husband and I both love going out for walks with him and reading books to him. Craig's a special guy. Earlier this year, for his birthday, Craig received a Bird Buddy bird feeder as a gift. It's essentially a bird feeder with a camera on it. What we do is we watch birds and other wildlife eat seeds or peanuts, whatever we leave out there in the bird feeder for them. And the bird feeder will take pictures or show us a live stream of what's going on. Our regular visitors include a variety of birds, which we do not name, but we have nicknamed a squirrel George, and we have a chipmunk that comes around a lot, and we have nicknamed him Alvin. Very cliche. Alvin, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, and George is just a random name for a squirrel. It's just what we chose. Craig loves seeing the pictures that the camera captures, and he likes to watch the live stream too, but only if there's some action. There's an app on his iPad and my iPhone where we can watch what's going on with the Bird Buddy. And that's it for my update about Craig. Derek is next. Derek is my 20-year-old son. This is going to be super short. He's in his third year at the University of Cincinnati. I don't know how much he wants me to tell you about him. So I'll just say that this was his first full semester in the business analytics program, and he's on track to graduate in May 2027. I think he's only got 3 semesters left: spring of 2026, fall of 2026, and then spring of 2027. I'm looking forward to spending time with him over Christmas break. I want to hear what his plans are for summer after we get back from our cruise. He's a good kid. I miss him and I love him. And that's it for my family update. Now for my favorite part, and I'll do this really quick. It's an update on what I've been listening to, reading, watching, and playing. What have I been listening to? Music, podcasts, and audiobooks, as always. I have a Christmas playlist right now because it's December. I've been listening to podcasts as I'm able. The School of Podcasting podcast is always my go to on Mondays. I like NPR Up First on most weekdays, and I've listened to several others as time allows. I feel like I've been listening to audiobooks more this fall than podcasts. Which audiobooks have I been listening to? I've got a list for you. I've got 7 books on my list just for this fall, and I've got 2 on deck. I listened to The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I listened to Taking Stock, a hospice doctor's advice on financial independence, building wealth, and living a regret free life by Jordan Grummett. Number 3 is Dirty 30. It's a fiction book by Janet Ivanovich. Number 4 is Now or Never, also by Janet Ivanovich. It's in the same series as Dirty 30. Again, it's fiction. Number 5 is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Number 6 is the sequel to It Ends With Us. It's called It Starts With Us, also by Colleen Hoover. And number 7, I'm currently listening to Atlas of the Heart Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience by Brene Brown. Next up in my queue is Sunrise on the Reaping, a Hunger Games novel by Suzanne Collins. It's a prequel to the Hunger Games. And also, I've got in my queue 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Berkman. I'm not sure what I'll go with next, but both of them would be good choices. And that does it for what I've been listening to. Now, what have I been reading? I read a lot of printed books with my son Craig this fall, but I did also read one for myself. Craig and I read 4 books in the Spy School series by Stuart Gibbs, and we're on a 5th one right now. I will spare you the title because they're all kind of repetitive, like Spy School at Sea, Spy School Revolution, Spy School Project X. So, anyways, we read a lot. So, 4 completed and 1 in progress. And for my own enjoyment, Winning is in My DNA 15 Minutes of Self Reflection by Dr. Sandra Anye. It is a guided journal. I think I already mentioned it during this episode. Dr. Anye was my guest on episode 353 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. I read her book to help me prepare for our conversation. It's always helpful if you're going to interview someone, an author, read their book first. It really helps lead to better conversations. I plan to use Dr. Anye's book, her guided journal, to help me celebrate my wins in 2026. And that's all for what I've been reading. What have I been watching? I've got TV shows, movies, and YouTube videos on my list, and let's go. My husband and I started watching a medical drama called The Pit. It is so fast paced that I can only handle it during the day. The first few times that we watched it before bedtime, I was awake and alert for hours afterwards. It made me feel like I was back working in a hospital again, and I didn't like it. I was way too hyped up. So we can only watch it during the day, and we don't get a lot of time to watch TV during the day. So that TV show may have to wait. We also started watching the TV show Community. It's a TV series called Community. It's a comedy. We like it, and our son Craig actually likes it, and he watches it with us. We also started watching the most recent season of The Amazing Race. I love that show. I've watched almost all the seasons. I usually wait until the end of the season, and then we kind of binge them, and we watch all of them in 1 month. I love the travel element. I really like seeing all the different cities and watching Americans navigate different cultures. That's fascinating. And then as far as movies, I can only think of 2. They are Superman and The Family Plan Part 2. And then on YouTube, I enjoy watching Saturday Night Live, the Holderness Family channel, and Mama Dr. Jones. I love the I didn't know I was pregnant videos. It's an OBGYN who comments on videos and she gives women's health advice. Just in case you're wondering why I watch Saturday Night Live on YouTube, sometimes I watch it on Peacock, but I like watching the replay because I'm old. I'm almost 50. I can't stay up that late on a Saturday. I value my sleep and I choose to watch the replay. There's other TV shows, movies, and YouTube videos that I watch, but that'll give you a taste of what I've been watching this fall. What have I been playing this fall? I have been playing Ticket to Ride on my iPad. The USA map has been my go to this fall, but really haven't been playing much, and I do like all the maps still. So, Ticket to Ride has been my go to game this fall. When Derek comes home from college for Christmas break, we plan to play some games then. That's it for what I've been playing this fall, and now it's time to wrap this episode up. I hope you enjoyed hearing an update about my business, both of my podcasts, my family, and what I've been listening to, reading, watching, and playing. Thank you very much for listening to my Fall 2025 update. This has been the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 359. Visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. In the show notes, you'll find links to my business website, my online store, the podcasts and books that I mentioned, Ticket to Ride, the board game, which makes a great Christmas gift. I'm just saying. My seasonal updates are mentioned in the show notes, as well as my social media links and more. Always, there are tons of links in my show notes. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you know someone who might like this episode, please share it with them. And if you like this podcast, come on back. We've still got more episodes coming up weekly until I switch to my monthly format. Subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks so much for listening today. Merry Christmas to you, and I'll talk to you next week.